So speaking of Russ, you mentioned the Wizards, and I love how the end of the year has been exciting around Russ and the triple doubles and him actually breaking the record and everything. Do you feel like we're underappreciating Russ hitting that triple double number?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah, he got his day of shine, or 16 hours or whatever, but this is monumental. This has been, I don't know how many years, 30 plus years, 40 years.
46 years. 46 years.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. But it's huge. I mean, guys like LeBron, Jason Kidd, I mean, those are the type of, they're top. Jason Kidd's a top 35 player all the time, and that's at a minimum. All those guys are top tier guys, even above that are in that. It's a meaningful stat. I mean, that means you're playing harder than anybody out there, and you're doing everything you need to do on the basketball court on the offensive side of the ball, really. At the same time, though, people just don't like the way Russell Westbrook plays, okay? It's just really transcending style of basketball, and you either love it or you hate it. I mean, most people have a love-hate relationship with them, but at the same time, they just say that and don't mean it. Most people, I'd say, if you truly ask them, if they have to pick one side, they like or don't like Russell Westbrook, it's sad. I mean, they're going to lean towards don't like, but the same time, for all the mistakes he makes, turnovers and whatnot late in the game, bad shots he puts up, he does way more good things, okay? He does way more good for the game of basketball than he does bad. My thing with Russ is you got to compare him to the guys he should be compared to and not the top 3, top 5 players, which people do. That's the problem in every year in the league. Like, he's never proven to be a top 3, top 5 player. Don't compare him to those guys. He's never shown he can be one of those players. He's a top 7 player, top 8 guy at his best seasons. And so compare him to the Paul Georges, the Jimmy Butlers, the Lucas, the Dames. You know, don't compare him to LeBron and Harden and Giannis. I mean, put it into perspective. You'll enjoy the guy a lot more. And then he might sit higher on your all-time rankings or just your infinity for the guy. So it's all about perspective, just like everything in life. And it's a sport of comparison. I mean, it's all about competition. And yeah, if you're going to compare him to LeBron frickin' James, the dude sucks. Everybody sucks. You know, it's just the way it goes. So it drives me nuts. And yeah, he doesn't have a ring. Sorry, but do I think he can get a ring? I always will say he's the hardest guy to build around, but you can build around any top 20, 25 player ever. It's just some are harder to build around than others, so the rest is up to the guys around him and the guys up top. So it is what it is.
I agree, and that's the thing about Russ. My argument, similar to yours, is comparing him properly. And the Thunder, when he was here, I mean, the biggest thing they dealt with was going into basically injury purgatory. They spent 4 years where they had a great window for a championship, and either one of their 2 stars were out. From Russ getting his ACL torn by Patrick Beverley in the first round of the playoffs, they were the top seed in the West. They were a beeline right to LeBron and the Heat for a rematch in the finals until that injury hit. Next year, you lose Serge Ibaka right when you need to face San Antonio, and he's the main person that stops Tim Duncan in San Antonio. And then, Kevin Durant's out for a year, and then 2016 happens. The list goes on with that. So you can, like you said, you can build around them. It's maybe a little bit harder. It can happen. You just got to stay healthy, which this is a game of attrition, and unfortunately, not everybody gets that. But one person, of course, I've always seen Russ attached to is really Steph. And it's mainly from those Golden State, Oklahoma City battles, how much fun they've been. Steph's more the efficient shooter. He's like, a buddy of mine said he's like everybody's favorite puppy. He's like the lovable guy, the guy that people, quote unquote, can relate to. And then Russ is the guy that nobody really thinks about. And he's the guy that people don't like. They don't like his style of play. He's inefficient, which in some metrics he can be, and others the way he affects the game is different. It's fascinating of an argument to me with that, because if you think about it, everybody says Russ is stat padding, but what is Steph doing? When he's shooting all them threes and stuff, of course, those are for points, but him shooting 15 threes in a game, 20 threes in a game, is that not really stat padding towards that 3-point record that he's going to get? I don't get how we can appreciate Steph's side, even though the efficiency, now this is a point I want to make on that. We love efficiency, but until we don't love it. And I say that because Nikola Jokic, as you mentioned about MVP, he's MVP because his efficiency numbers are off the charts. I mean, he's having a Wilt, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar type season, but nobody wants to give him MVP. They're like, he's not really flashy enough. So it's like flash is only good on certain things, where other things we want efficiency. We want the game to be played in fundamentals. That doesn't make any sense to me. I'm thrown off by that.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's the same big voices, the yellers out there, and the guys that are just the guys I'm hearing it from. I mean, the Stephen A's, the Skips, and yeah, it goes down. But a lot of the people that are saying these things are people with really large platforms trying to sell that whatever shit they're trying to sell and put it out there. And
exactly.
Yes. I mean, Jokic, to an average casual fan that's tuning in 5 games every year or 1 time a week, sure, he might not be in the top 5, top 10 for those players, the most fun guys to watch, but man, for a guy like me, I love this guy. Like, he's as fun as anybody. He really is. I mean,
oh my goodness.
And it's just a slower way of playing the game, but like he does some crazy stuff out there, like the passes and the just type of shots the dude takes, and he's just funny. I mean, his goofy persona and his goofy bodily movements, I mean, yeah, it's fun to watch. You just gotta embrace it and watch it closer and on a more timely basis, I guess you can say, versus I mean, if you just watch a couple plays here and there, you might not see like his big moments, because Steph's gonna get down and shoot a shot within 6 seconds, and it's gonna be a long bomb, Trae Young type thing. So that's what it comes down to. What's selling, what's not. But for those savants out there, I mean, if Jokic isn't all-time fun for you, I don't know what is in basketball.
Agreed. And then with that, now the question is, should Steph be in the MVP conversation?
No. Sorry,
You're making the exact same face I'm thinking.
I was thinking about Russ and Steph. I mean, I got lost on that where we were at there. But, yeah, for the MVP conversation, it drives me absolutely clinically insane. Like, I want to almost put a gun to my head when people are putting Steph as number 1 and number 2. It's not right.
Yeah.
It's not right. You can go back so many years. Like, yes, he's putting up incredible numbers and he's winning more games towards the end of the year. But at the end of the day, like, this is the first player I can ever recall us doing this for. His numbers are great. But literally, the only numbers that are great are points per game, 3-point percentage, field goal percentage. Like, those 3 numbers. Like, go look at all the numbers.
You're right.
Every other
Historically,
MVP candidate, it's just so frustrating. Like, Steph shouldn't be higher than like 4, 3 or 4 maybe. I mean, 3 I can understand. Yes, you could probably talk me into 3, but when I release my final rankings, he's probably going to be closer to 4 or 5. I mean, at the lowest. I doubt I'll have him that high. I highly doubt it. But, I mean, that's where I'll start to consider him.
No, and I'm with you on that. I've always felt like there's about 3 or 4 criteria that you have to have for an MVP season that makes logical sense. Be the top player on the most dominant team in the league and really dominate. Do something really historic in your season if you're not the top team. And then from there, just being the only guy on the team and actually moving into a top 2-3 spot. That's really your three biggest criteria, in my opinion. And I got the Russ getting MVP because he broke the record for triple doubles. We hadn't seen that in 40 plus years. So yeah, that made sense that year. The Harden MVP, he was so dominant that season, that made sense. This year for Steph, the only thing he's doing is, really, like you said, he's leading the league in scoring. And
it's not even a high number.
Really good in three. Right.
It's not even a high points per game number for
Tracy McGrady's done it. You know what I'm saying? We've had all these. Allen Iverson's done it, didn't win MVP. We've had so many players that have led the league in scoring and didn't win it. So it makes sense.
The difference is the efficiency he's doing it on. That's the big thing. But nah, I mean, he still has decent enough talent around him where we'd really be talking about this for the talent he has on his team. Okay, I feel like I'm a guy that's pretty good with realistic expectations. Okay, look at Luka Doncic. I think their talent around them is very, very equal. Luka is literally, I mean, he's just 4 games, but that 4 games is meaningful. That goes from the 5th to the possibly 9th seed. Like, Steph might not even be in the playoffs, and he's been on the outside looking in most of the year. So let's put it in perspective. I mean, those things matter. Jokic has had a lot of missing players throughout most of the year. And the Nuggets' talent hasn't been that great this year outside of the emergence of Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal played great for when he was there.
He was playing so good.
Yeah, I'll start crying if I think about that, but yeah, I mean, Jamal Murray, I consider him an all-star. I really do. He's about as sub-all-star as it gets.
Yeah, I feel like Jamal Murray is going to end up in the Mike Conley situation. I think the same thing about Trae Young moving forward, that they're going to be so good, but not good enough to get to the All-Star game because there's much better players in their conference. You know what I'm saying? Like Conley only hit. Yeah. I don't think Trey's going to make another All-Star unless Kyrie's gone, James Harden's gone. No, think about it. No, I'm being real. That's the thing that's going to hurt him. That's what hurt him this year in All-Star game. That's why he didn't make it this year. Kyrie was healthy for a change. Yet James Harden that moved over to the East. And those players aren't going anywhere for a couple years. Now, if Kyrie does his typical thing of not being healthy, I can totally see Trae Young making his move back in, which is the reason why he made it 2 years ago, is because Kyrie didn't play this season. If those guys are healthy, Trae Young, similar to Jamal Murray, they have an upward hill battle against players in their conference that are a little bit superior if you truly think about it. You know what I'm saying? But with the Jokic argument, you're right. And Michael Porter Jr. Now, let me ask you this. I want you to go back to the Trae Young piece, but I want to ask you this as well. With Michael Porter Jr.'s emergence, do you think that it might be time for him to move Jamal Murray?
Absolutely not. I mean, as long as they can get great defense from their 2 and their 4, like Aaron Gordon, as long as they have him there and then they find a 2 that can guard, like a mother, I think they're great. I think they have what it takes to win. It's just Aaron Gordon needs to get a little better. Michael Porter Jr. needs to get a little better on defense. But everything else, as long as Michael Porter Jr. keeps improving, which I think he will on the defensive side of the ball, and Aaron Gordon becomes a little more consistent all around, I think they have what it takes to win if they stay healthy. I really do. And I love they're just random young draftees like Marcus Howard, my guy, just popping off last night and coming out from nowhere. Zeke Naji, I think they have the bullets loaded. It's just they got to let them out and they got to release them and they got to get this thing rolling. I just want them to be healthy. But Trae Young, the difference versus him and Jamal Murray, I mean, 1, Trae is better, but 2...
Agreed. No, I agree.
You can argue, I mean, the smart play and the efficiency and the defense, but Trae's night and day from where he was last year. And I think he's pretty decently better than Jamal. It's closer than most think, though. But he's the best player on his team, okay? And as long as his team stays healthy, this team is here to stay. Like, they could be the number 1 seed in the East next year. I really believe it with this team if they're completely healthy.
Oh no, I agree with you, and that was no true shade towards Trae Young because being from Oklahoma, I'm a big Trae Young fan or whatnot. My thing is that was the issue that, like I said, Mike Conley had is he didn't make All-Star games because there was just better point guards in the conference that were still at their apex. Now I think that once we start seeing those guys teeter out, then I can totally see Trae taking over it. But for Jamal, my thought behind him is that it's not that Jamal Murray isn't a good player. I think that he is kind of holding back the emergence of Michael Porter Jr. I think Michael Porter Jr. will grow faster without Jamal on the roster, and I think he may actually surpass Jamal in skill set because I think he has all the tools. It's just that, to be honest, it's kind of the problem with a lot of young players developing on championship contender teams. You can't really develop if you ain't in the game. You can't really develop if you're not really getting the ball. You know what I mean? So that's where that's the only thing I'm thinking about now. I would want the Nuggets to trade Jamal Murray, but I think that's the thought process I'm having is if they get rid of Jamal Murray, maybe Michael Porter Jr. becomes a top 5 forward in the West. I can see Jamal taken away from Michael Porter Jr. I can. Just touches scoring wise. I mean, they're both great ISO players. Usage. Mm-hmm. I think they gotta let it ride for a little bit. Don't overreact too quickly. But hey, I mean, if you traded him while he's injured, you found something great out there, and the way things are going, I just think Michael Porter Jr. should get there anyways. I think he's kind of like a Paul George in regards to his versatility of scoring. Paul George is as versatile scorer as they get. I like that.
And I think Michael Porter Jr. is the same way on offense. I don't think he needs a ton of usage to be amazing. And hot take, kind of, maybe not. I think Michael Porter Jr. is better already. I think he just might be. And
I'm not going to fight you. That's a fair point.
Yeah, I'm picking Michael Porter Jr. over Jamal Murray right now going forward, absolutely. And Jamal Murray's been my guy before pre-draft, but I think they both, Denver needs them both. The only thing I can see out there that you'd think about trading Jamal for, just quick side note, is send him up to Toronto, get Fred VanVleet back, maybe just that, because Fred's the perfect fit there. Fred's perfect, that 1-for-1. Or else maybe like a Malcolm Brogdon. That's perfect as well.
That's a fair one there. That's something to think about. I'm going to think about that.